that we did last week. So those will they will be kind of a bit more shorter. So we'll create two of these. One a little bit more sparser than the other, and feel free to do some wiggles on those. Okay, so the reason why I like to do this first is because I like to work out basically how I would like to do my texture sheet. So with this, will probably do it as a 2K map, where if you're doing longer strands of hair, you could do it as a 2K by 1K or 4K by 1K, depending what resolution you would like to have. I would say probably go bigger the better, because we can always reduce the size. Okay, so now if I jump over to the other image, let's move this out of the way. So this is the long hair, and if you're deciding to do a long hairstyle, I would probably, oops, kind of do it as a 2K by 1K, and then you can get longer hair strands in there. Again, I do the same. I do the same four, so same four sections, and then you would have your little tufts maybe a little bit longer. We would also put the eyelashes in here as well. So, but we'll get to eyelashes on a bonus video, because I just want to go through creating the main hair structure this time, and we'll do the eyelashes as a bonus. Okay. So once you've planned out how you're going to do your texture, you can jump into ZBrush and we'll begin. So here we are in ZBrush. A few things I'd like to do before starting. Something I'd like to do is come over to Documents, and where it says Range, I just like to place the range all the way down. The reason why I do this is so I've got like a solid colour. Also, I'm going to initialize my UIs, so it's something that you guys will see, so you're not seeing all my hotkeys and stuff like that, so we're working with a clean slate. Also, I'm going to come over here and I'm just going to say New Documents as well, just so we get the full screen. So the first thing I'd like to do is to bring in a plane. Just going to drag that in and change the colour to grey. And if we go into polygon mode, we can see that it has polygons all the way across. I tend to keep this as it is because we're going to be masking out different areas. So I'm going to make it a polygon mesh, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate it. I'm going to push E for scale, and I'm just going to scale it down. So I'm kind of working out how big I would like the placement of my section. So I think that's about right. And then what I'd like to do is as well, I'd just like to do like a little rotate on this, and then we'll put it forward. Okay, so once we've done that, we can hide this big one. The reason why I keep the big one there is because I like to have this as a reference, as if it is my texture sheet. We could possibly move this over a little bit, but we can do that a little bit later. We'll see how we get on. Okay, so if I mask out a section, I kind of like to go in the middle. We'll just bend it at the curves just a little bit, and then we do a smooth as well. So we're going to come down to fiber mesh. So if we click fiber mesh here, and if we just click preview, we get this lovely ball of mess. So we're going to start tweaking the settings to this, but in general for hair, I kind of like to go for like the first clump around about 50, 56, 54 like strands. It's a little bit hard to work that out in here because, as you can see, if we click modify, we have maximum fibers is set to 50. So it's kind of, if it looks about 50. So what we're going to do, I'm going to turn all of this down. So by mask to 0, we're going to set this to 0 as well. And then coverage, we're going to set the coverage to about 600. Okay. And then we'd like to play with the length as well. So if we pull that all the way to the top, because then if we grab our mesh, we can kind of see it's still not reaching, but that's okay. We can adjust that as we go. So I'm looking for fiber mesh. So we can also come over here for length profile, and I just like to kind of put it all the way to the top. And then we can bring back our plane just to see how that's doing, and then we can just pull the length back just a little bit. So at the moment, the strands are a little bit too tight for what I would like. So I'm going to bring down my fibers, and I kind of want to go for a 0.08, just to see start to see the singular fibers. What I would also like to do is I'd like to up the width. So if I come back to that, so it's width profile, and I just like to bump that up as high as it goes. Okay. The next thing I'd like to do is I kind of want it to stop spraying out like this. I kind of want it to actually drop like if it's hair. So we're going to come over to gravity, which is down here, and we're just going to pull it all the way to 1. And then we can play with the gravity settings here, the gravity profile, and we can normally reset works, but we can just drag it all the way to the top, and it just gives that extra little bend. Now, depending what angle you decide to do your gravity, will depend on how the gravity works. So, for example, if I click the gravity this way, it will start bending just a little bit more. So I'm not too worried that it's coming out like this, because we can easily push this back. In fact, we might bring that up just a little bit that way. Ooh. Have to make sure that we're rotating at the right angle. Bring back our mask, and we can just click preview again. That works a little bit better. The reason why we like to add an angle is because when we come to do the depth for the alpha, it kind of gives us this this gradient in the texture. Okay. So next thing I like to do is I kind of like to give make them not look like planes, to actually make them look like solid strands. So what we're going to do is I'm going to come over to profile, and I'm going to whack it up to about 4 to 5. Now you will get this this message, and it's okay. I just kind of like to say skip noted until restart. This will slow your computer down a little as well, but not to worry. If it does, just pull back the profile. But if you kind of want to work quite quickly, just put the profile down. I'm also going to put the segments to about 10. And basically what that does, it changes this. So you can kind of see as well, because we've given it more segments, it kind of relaxes the strands just a little bit more to something we would expect to see. With the width, I'm going to come in here and change this just so it has a little bit of a taper to it. Not too much, because we're going to be using ZBrush's tools to kind of give taper, and we're going to be moving this shape around because it doesn't give us the best shape, but it gives us a really good start to be able to manipulate the mesh. Okay, so once we have done this, I think we're pretty good. We could turn down the twist a little. So basically, what the twist does, we turn it all the way up. It kind of gives you this weird knotted looking hair, which is something we don't want to do. We kind of want like a little bit of noise, but not too much. So about 16, anywhere between 0 to 20, I would say is quite a good range. So once we've done this, we could probably just put our fibers up a little bit. So if you click on the fiber on max fiber, and if you hold it over the top, you can kind of see this little white invisible box over the top. Can you see that? So if you drag along this, it kind of goes up in smaller dosages rather than moving this along and it jumping quite dramatically. So it's literally just over the top, and you can see the number isn't jumping as big as what it normally does. I'd say that's a good amount right there. So what I'd like to do as well, because I don't want to keep setting this up every time I have to create my strands, what I'd like to do is I'd like to come in and save this out. So I'm going to call this hair strands, and I'm just going to save it here. Okay. So the next thing I'd like to do is I'd like to be able to manipulate this. So what we need to do, we need to accept the changes. So we can come here and say accept, and you can see now it has created it as a mesh. I had my wireframe turned on. What I'd like to do next is I'd like to kind of extract this out. So I kind of go make poly. The reason why I like to do this is because if we come over to our move tool and we try to move the top parts of the hairs, we can't, it won't let us. So if we go make poly and then come back to our mesh and we go append, and then we bring that back in, so we turn this one off, you can see now it lets us move these around. Okay. So after we've done this, what I like to do is I like to come over to polygroups, and I like to do an auto group. So this basically lets us select individual hairs. Okay. So I'm going to go into my no, well, I won't do that just yet. Actually, what I would like to do is I'm going to push W, and this gives us the gizmo tool, and we're going to come over to the little cog, and we're going to come over to deformers. So those of you who've used Maximizer, this is kind of our FFD modifier. So we can kind of come in here and start manipulating. So to select an edge that we would like, I kind of like to unmask everything so you can't move anything around. And then if you go Control Alt and mask it out, and then we can move little sections. So I'm just lining it up just a little bit because it kind of went a little bit too far down for me, for what I wanted from the hair strand. And when it comes to doing hair, I don't really like to do this, where you pinch the hair so it kind of comes to like a point. I kind of like to keep it a bit more maintained. The reason why I do that is because I like to do the pinching in the actual hair cards themselves. I'm just bringing it all in together, just so it has a bit more unified. Don't worry about this one because we can mask this out and pull it about like so. So once we have done that, we can come over to the cog again and say accept, and that will just get rid of that FFD modifier. And now we can start coming in and moving our mesh around. So use topological brush, move topological brush, sorry. It's a really good brush for doing this, and we can mask out areas. Just to bring this one back. And because we've got those groups in there, it's so much more easier to move parts around. So we can really work on those individual hairs. So the main part of this is with this hair, this hair strand, we kind of want to make sure there's not that many gaps going through. So if you can see a gap, what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn that off, and I'm going to turn off my background just for now, just so we have the dark on the light, just so we can see what's going on. So we're just moving these meshes around just to make them look a little bit more entwined with each other. So it's like the hair strands have life to it. We kind of want to bring the hair strands down to a point as well. Even though I said we don't want to bring it down as a point this way, we kind of want to group our hair strands together, so they're more of an even length.